We certainly love the pastors of the city, and especially these three who have a very tender place in our hearts. This whole concept of those preaching women came from my woman, amen. And why don't you come on up and whatever thoughts you would have to say with your fine self, come on up here. And we love these pastors again, and we will begin, as the program indicates, Pastor Vicki McIntyre of Abundant Grace Ministries, followed by Pastor Carolyn Wilkins of Resurrection Life, and then she's going to bring us on home, Pastor Charlene Washington of So I'm going to have my precious wife just say something regarding this.
I think I started off with 10 preachers. The pastor, apostle cut it down to 3. I like the 10 though, I like the 10. Anyway, my dad brought me this book called Those Preaching Women. And so that's what gave me the idea to use that topic. Because so many times we don't get a chance to preach as women, except for special occasion. And we need to be doing more preaching than what we're doing. Because if we're called to the ministry, God has called us to reach somebody, and there's an anointing to reach certain people. So I believe there's a message out there that women are God's secret weapon for the last days. And he said, greater is going to be the group that publishes word, and when you research it out, it's talking about women. So I believe that we're going to be used for God, for his glory. God is using us to pastor, to apostle, to all kind of positions are coming to women now, because if we can go to the moon, I know we can pastor. Amen. Hallelujah. If Mary can carry the baby in her belly, I know we can carry the word in our mouth. Amen. So when they go to the mouth, so you know, preachers start preaching when they get mics, they get anointed. But we're going to pray right now for everyone coming forward. Father, let the word that we hear tonight be from you. Oh, let us hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. We bind every hindering spirit in Jesus' name. We bind every deaf and dumb spirit in Jesus' name. We bind religious spirits in Jesus' name. And we lose Zoe life right now in Jesus' name. We command the ears to open and hear in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. We command the eyes to see, God, because your word says that hearing ears and seeing eyes are from the Lord. And if we see and hear, we'll be converted, God. Let there be a conversion experience tonight in Jesus' name.
Hallelujah, sir. I want you to show some kingdom love for Pastor Vicki McIntyre of Abundant Grace Ministries. Come on.
Well, good evening, everybody. I got to tell you, I'm not much of a preacher. I'm more of a teacher. But that can come, right? As I grow up. I just want to thank Pastors James and Leona, Apostle and Prophetess, for this opportunity to share tonight. It's important to us, to Doug and I, my husband, very important to us. And so I'm very thankful for the place that I have here to share. Amen. I'm going to start today with the text that we were given. So you're probably going to hear this one a few times tonight, right? Amen. Good. All right. So 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 28. And we're going to go through 31. And it says, and God has appointed these in the church. First apostles, second prophets, third teachers. After that, miracles, then gifts of healing, helps, administrations, varieties of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Do all have gifts of healings? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But earnestly desire the best gifts, and yet I show you a more excellent way. Well, who gives the gifts? Who gives the gifts? God does. And who does he give the gifts to? All of us. Yeah, there are gifts that are the fivefold ministry, but every one of you has been given a gift the day that you were born again. There are 7 motivational gifts. They can be found in Romans 12, verse 6 through 8. I'm going to read those really quickly for you. Having been gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, let us prophesy in proportion to our faith. Or ministry, let us use it in our ministering. He who teaches in teaching, he who exhorts in exhortation. He who gives with liberality, he who leads with diligence, he who shows mercy with cheerfulness. So God has given each of you a gift, as well as giving the 5-fold gifts. And he's given grace differing for those gifts. What does that mean? It means that no 2 people are exactly alike. Just like the stars are so different in the sky when you look at night, every one of you is unique. Every one of you is different. There can be 2 pastors and they're totally different in their personality and how they pastor the church. There can be 2 people that have the gift of helps. One thinks ahead and one just does what they're told because that's their personality. And God has everyone different and unique. You have something in you that nobody else has. You have a gift that nobody else can handle the same way. And there are people who are waiting for your gift to come forth. They're waiting for you to share with them what God has given you. So use what he's gifted you to do the best that you can for his glory. Study and pray, practice and exercise and use those gifts, and then obey him when he tells you to do something. When you do your best for his glory, he always shows up. Tonight's topic was grace for the gift, and that is very, very close to my heart. I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher, and I couldn't do any of the things that I do without the grace of God. Years ago, God spoke to my heart when I was a child. I grew up in poverty with a broken home and a lot of abuse, a lot of things that went on. But what I had that my sisters somehow didn't have was I had God. And God always showed himself with his grace to me. And even back then, he spoke to me about doing things later in life, that I would be ministering for him. Now, I didn't know exactly what I would be doing, but he told me, you're going to help people, you're going to teach, you're going to do this, you're going to, and I'm like, okay. Then I grew up, and I kind of let go of it for a while. In fact, I dated a couple guys that wanted to be pastors, and I'm like, I'm not going to be a pastor's wife, I can tell you that right now. I dumped them. I'm not living a life of sacrifice from my old life. All they do is take care of the church, and they don't take care of you. So they went down the road, right? I let them go. And then I met Doug, my husband, Pastor Doug. I don't share this too often, but I will tell you this, because this is grace. I met him in a bar. It was called the Stinkin' Rankin. Well, it was called Rankin. We called it the Stinkin' Rankin, okay. I met him. He was a drinker. He was not born again. He didn't know anything about God or the Bible. I had all this Christian background, and I was doing my one wild year and checking things out to see what it was like. And I meet him. He calls me by my friend's name for the whole night. Hey, Debbie, want to meet me next week, Debbie? I'll bring you a birthday cake, Debbie. And yet here I am with him, 43 years later. And guess what? Next thing I know, he gets born again. God sends someone. And he says, what do you know about getting born again? I'm like, what? So I tell him what I know. And then he comes back and he says, last night I got down on my knees in my bedroom and I gave my heart to God. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And I'm thinking, this is not going to last. He can't go without drinking. He's not going to quit going to the bars. I know what guys are like these days. There aren't very many of them that are really going to do what they say, right? Oh, my word. We have to get married. We need to make our union holy, he said. We got to please God. I got to give away this money that I earned the wrong way, and it was lots of money. I got to read my Bible. After we got married, he'd get in his closet and read for hours. I had to go to the pastor of our church, who I never thought would say, don't read so much to him. I mean, what pastor tells a guy don't read his Bible so much? I was sure that wouldn't happen, but she did. It was Pastor Matijik, and she's like, Doug, you're wrong. Don't read so much. You're newlywed. You can study, you can read, but spend time with your wife. That's first. That's your first priority. He never let go of the word. He never quit being sold out. He never quit being fiery. Pretty soon he wanted to go to Bible school. I'm like, Bible school? And I want you to go too. I'm like, I don't want to go. And then the Lord said, go. So we both went for 3 years. And the Lord spoke to us about starting a church. He called Doug to be a pastor. And we kind of hem-hawed around for a while. And then suddenly we came here, the center of attraction. We came one day out of the clear blue sky. We were church visiting for a summer, trying some different churches and just seeing what God had to say to us. And we walked in here, and Apostle James called us out. He told Pastor Doug he needed to repent. He's like, you need to repent. I'm like, what's he been doing behind my back? Well, it was about him not starting the church, not being obedient, right? And he admitted that. And then he told me, and God's called you too to pastor alongside your husband. I'm like, whoa, this is really deep. And here we are. He told us that in 2002. I think it was like summer, I'm not sure. And then by November 3rd of 2002, we started our first service at Abundant Grace Ministries. And here we are. We're still here. We're still going, thanks to the grace of God. Now, how did we get here? When God took a child that had come from an abused home, he took a drunk and he turned them into pastors. He turned them into gifts to try and help people. How did that happen? That was by his grace. How are Apostle James and Leona here after all these years? It's the grace of God. If we didn't have grace, I don't know what we would do, and that's the truth. So, what is grace? Well, God gave each of us grace for the gift that we have. He gave us grace to make it easier. He made us grace to show us how to use it. What is grace? It's a free, unmerited favor of God. We don't deserve it. We can't earn it. We can't buy it. He gives it to us. It's ours. And he bestows it by his grace. What are some of the ways that grace can help us in our gifts? Because that's what this is about, grace for the gift. Well, first of all, grace can call people to the fivefold ministry. Do you know you don't call yourself? If you find someone, I know some people that say, oh, I'm a prophet, I'm an evangelist. I don't see the evidence, and I don't see the call. And if you're not called by God, you're going to get yourself in trouble, and you're going to hurt people. But grace can call you to fivefold ministry. Galatians 1:15 says, but when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace. Paul was separated from his mother's womb. In spite of everything he did and everything he went through, God had a call on him in the womb. I believe God had a call on me in the womb, just the way my life went. And watching the things that unfolded and how they're still unfolding, that call was on me in my womb, in my mother's womb. So he calls us. He separates us. If we're not called, then we are an imposter. And we're not worthy to be at ministry. Secondly, grace can give the ability to preach. I said I can still grow in this, right? Ephesians 3:8. Paul said, to me, who am less than the least of all the saints, this grace was given, that I should preach among the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ. When Paul was called, he was persecuting the Christians. And yet he was not only called, but he began to preach the gospel to the Gentiles, to a whole nation that had never heard the word of God before. Can you believe that? And Moses, look at the call on his life. He was a stutterer. There are people God called that would never have gotten where they were, except for the grace of God.
Yeah.
When Doug was called, my husband, he had grown up, he had been very sick for a couple years in his early years of school, and he missed a lot of school, and they kept pushing him through, and he's a smart man, but he could barely read when we got married. And when our daughter was 3 or 4, she started reading the books to him, correcting him. Do you know that as God worked in him, he's become a very, very good reader. He can read anything. He can write. He can speak. He's wonderful. But that was the grace of God on him that changed his life. Grace can change lives. It changed Doug's life. It changed my life. It's changed many lives. 1 Corinthians 15, 9 through 11. Let's look at that. For I am the least of the apostles, who am not worthy to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church. But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all. Yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Therefore, whether it was I or they, so we preach, and so you believed.
Yes.
So, God can change lives. He transforms our lives to represent his righteousness. Where would you be if you never heard the gospel? Do you remember who shared the gospel with you? Somewhere God took someone and he planted that desire in them to preach or teach you the word, to share with you about God. And that's how you got born again. Where would you be if you didn't have a pastor who laid hands on you for healing, who had that grace? Where would you be if you weren't taught about faith and how to use it? Where would you be if no one shared with you that God has a better way for you, that he has a victorious life for you, waiting as you learn about him? As you grow in him, he just takes you and he grows you up from that little child and brings you into a mature Christian. He can change lives through his grace. Grace can give power. 1 Corinthians 5:10. But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me was not in vain, but I labored more abundantly. Grace can give boldness. Romans 15:15. Nevertheless, brethren, I have written more boldly to give you to you on some points. So he wrote more boldly to some people and more boldly on some points, reminding you because of the grace given to me by God. So how does that work, the boldness? I remember one time I was talking to a young woman in our church, and she was sharing about an adulterous affair she was having. And she told me, I don't want to stop it. I know it's wrong. I don't want to stop. I'm not going to stop. I dealt with her like 2 or 3 different times, trying to plead with her, trying to talk to her. And the last time I talked to her, the boldness of God came upon me. And I gave her a word. I said, you are about to make the biggest mistake of your life, young lady. And if you do this is what will happen. It was a boldness I had never experienced before. I felt that boldness several times in my walk with God as I ministered to people. And that particular time, Pastor Doug came up the stairs and he's like, who were you talking to? I've never heard you talk that way. It was a very calm but bold and stern word. Do you know that she repented and turned her life around? And they are still married today. Praise God. So grace, it gives you boldness. Grace can give seasoning to your speech. Colossians 4:6. Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how you ought to answer each one. You know, we can be mature or immature in our gifts, whether they're motivational gifts or whether they're the fivefold. God calls, He puts that call on us, but He doesn't always choose us right away. Sometimes we have to be seasoned first. And grace is what seasons us. Grace is what brings us into maturity. As He brings us through things in our life, tests and trials, as He shows us a better way, we begin to learn to watch our mouth. Imagine if God didn't season our words. I know that I would have hurt a lot of people. I was always very outspoken as a child. I was the oldest. I just said what I thought is just how it was, and I would say it. You don't like it? That's too bad, right? Sometimes I'm still like that. But praise God, He's working on me. I don't know about you, but my mouth can get away from me sometimes, right? But words have such power. And so we have to use those words with grace. We have to use those words in a way that builds up and exhorts and edifies. Harsh, hasty words indicate an immature gift. And when you see somebody that just blurts things out, you know they're immature in Christ. They're immature in their gift. Because if they were seasoned, they would stop and think first. I doubt if you ever see your pastors lose their temper. I've had my husband sit in a chair during prayer, and his intercessors one of them began swearing at him. He wanted him to do things a certain way. He wanted him to put people who weren't even coming only once every 4 or 5 years into the pulpit and let them teach. What, honey?
4 or 5 weeks.
Weeks, right, sorry. And here he is, he's the pastor of the church, and they're swearing at him. And he sat there quietly and let them make a fool of themselves. Afterwards, they left. They were probably embarrassed and ashamed. And I think that was the right move. But I can tell you this, many times as pastors, people will say things about you. They will say things to you that hurt you, that demean you, that criticize you, that make you feel defeated. But God, in His grace, gives you the ability to sit there and look them in the eye and love them. Love them. Now, I'm not going to say to you, when they did that to him, I got angry. And I think that's probably part of marriage. I can take more for myself than what I'll tolerate for my husband. And he's the same way with me. We protect each other. We watch each other's backs. We take care of each other, right? And so it made me very angry, and I really had to work with myself on that one and ask God for His grace. Grace can give you strength, 2 Timothy 2:1. You therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus. Man, we get weary and tired. You know, don't think that we have this supernatural ability to just keep going. There are some times I'm so tired I can't think straight. And I don't even know what to say because I'm just tired. As pastors, we put our hands to the plow. My husband sweeps the porch and the rug out in front of the door. I know Pastor James for a long time. We drive by and he's mowing the lawn here. I'm hoping somebody's mowing that lawn now. Yeah. But back then, he used to have to mow that lawn himself. If one of us was teaching, sometimes the other one had to put on the usher's cap. I work in the nursery still. Not every month, but when it's needed, I do. I step in and I take care of it for people so they can have a break or fill in when someone's not there. We do way more behind the scenes than most of you know.
Amen.
That's right.
And we don't always tell our people what we're doing. But at the same time, God can give us that strength that we need to keep going, to keep doing it. God gives endurance through His grace. 2 Corinthians 12:9. And He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. The power of God rests in me. Thank God. You know, Pastor James was alluding to hard times. And the churches in Saginaw, the churches all over this country are hurting. The numbers are down. Do you know what the numbers being down does? We don't go around telling you this all the time, but there are times we don't pay ourselves. We don't take the paycheck from the church because it isn't there. The bills have to be paid first.
That's right.
We don't tell you when there isn't enough help all the time. We ask for help, but we don't get mad if you don't help. We try to encourage you. We try to help you grow into helping. But do we ever say, you know, if you would just do one thing to help, I would be so thankful and grateful, right? So encouraged. My grace is sufficient for you. That's what God says to pastors. That's what He says to apostles. It's what He said to prophetesses. My grace is sufficient for you. When you think you can't take another step, when you want to quit, oh, I have wanted to quit this year more than ever. I don't know, it's been a rough year. How many of you pastors can say it's been a rough year? I've wanted to quit. I tried to talk my husband into quitting. He is not a quitter. Oh my goodness. I think they're going to have to carry him out of the church when he dies, right? Because he's not going to quit. He's going to keep preaching. He's got fire in his belly. But I wanted to quit. And it was only God's grace that changed my mind. It's only His grace as I sat before Him that He began to speak to me and encourage me. You know, we get discouraged. We get tired. We want to quit. It's just a fact of life. We look at the summer in the church. I don't know what your church is like in the summer, but our church has people that are vacation happy. They think that they need to be gone on vacation every Saturday and Sunday, 2 to 3 weeks a month. Now, are they with us? Oh, they're with us. Do they put their tithes in when they come back? They do. But in the meantime, you look out and you've got 10 adults and you're going, I'm doing this for 10 adults. And then Pastor Doug will say, but one of them is really growing. One of them is really learning. Aren't you glad you're doing this for your niece, Erica? Aren't you glad you're doing that? Like, okay. The last thing I want to share is that ministers are human. We make mistakes. Sometimes I put my foot in my mouth in my foot, whatever it is you say, foot in your mouth. When you're not under the anointing, a pastor can be like anybody else. And here's where you need to separate. When your pastor, your apostle, your prophetess is under the anointing, when the anointing is on them to teach, hey, it's good, right? When it's not, they're like you. They can be hangry. You need to feed them some Cheetos or whatever it is they like, right? They can be irritable, a little sharp-tongued. They can be short. They might sound a little harsh sometimes. They make mistakes. But God has called and graced your apostle, your pastor, your teacher in Apostle James, your prophetess, your pastor, your teacher in Pastor Leona, to help you, to equip you, to grow you up, to be your grace gift. Say that. Apostle James is my grace gift. Prophetess Leona is my grace gift. God meant them to be a gift to you. And under the anointing, they are a gift to you. That anointing can save your life when they warn you ahead about something. That anointing can keep your job. I've told people 2 different ones. I've said to them, if you keep taking days off, you're going to lose your job. And the next week, they lost their job because they did it again. Another one was a RN, a young man married, that he was doing some drugs, stealing drugs from the hospital, from his patients. And his wife told us she wanted us to pray for him, which we did, and counseled. He wasn't very receptive. He thought he wouldn't get caught. No one's going to catch me. And I'm like, you are going to get caught. You keep doing it, you're going to get caught. Sure enough, they hauled him out, took him to jail. He lost his job. He was done. His marriage was done as well. We are meant to be your gift. We're meant to be there when you go through health issues. We're meant to be there when your marriage is hurting and no one else can help you. We're there for that.
Amen.
We're your grace gifts. And yet, we can get closed off and shut down by you. When you get offended over who we are in our unanointed state sometimes, I've got to say this. No one who pastors or ministers does it for their own sake. They're not doing it for the money. They're not doing it for the fame. They're doing it for the love of people. We don't set out to hurt anyone. We set out to help you, to set you free. And when you get hurt or offended and then you begin to talk and you begin to criticize and you begin to backstab those gifts that God has given you, we hear it. We don't always tell you we heard. But one person tells you this and another tells you that. Pretty soon you got the picture, right? We know. We know what's going on. And God tells us. We get hurt by that sometimes. And it hurts our heart. Because we know what our motive is. We know how hard we pray for you. We know how much we want you to succeed. We know how much we love you and care for you. And how much we desire to see you do well. And so when you get offended, we can't minister to you. We can't get through that wall. When you put walls of offense up, they keep people out as well. They keep out the gift of God flowing to you. We can get discouraged and feel rejected. I had someone say something and I know they were mad when they said it, but it hurt my heart. It hurt my heart, and it took me a while to get that hurt off me, to get rid of it. And yet God calls us to walk in love and forgiveness, to speak good over you, to build you up, to let God take care of our reputation. We know sometimes people are out talking about us or whatever they're mad about. They're talking about it. It's God that takes care of our reputation. We don't defend ourselves. He does. He defends us. We have to trust God and we have to continue to walk in His grace, the grace that He's given us. We have to keep seeking to please Him and not man. If we can't correct you, we can't help you. We can't.
That's right.
God corrects those He loves. As parents, we correct our children, not to be mean, but because we love them. And God calls us to correct you sometimes for your good. But if you don't receive it, we're done. We can't help you anymore. And sometimes that happens, and we just have to back off except to pray. Now, do we mess up? Yes. And what happens with that? Romans 11, verse 2 through 9. I want to read you that. Just ready to close. God has not cast away His people whom He foreknew. That's not it. Where's this verse? This man memorized, he's got them all. The gifts and callings of God are without repentance. Where's that? Oh, you do. Well, anyway, that's what it says. The gifts and callings, I must have written it down wrong. Gifts and callings of God are without repentance. When we mess up, believe me, we're the first ones that pray. We're the first ones that repent and go to God. We know we messed up. And we're really sorry. He forgives us. And not only does he forgive us, he forgets it, just like he does with your sin. How come you want to hold on to what we did wrong, but he lets it go? So he lets it go, and we go on in his grace to do the things that he's called us to do. 1 Corinthians 1:4 says, I always thank my God concerning you for the grace of God which was given you in Christ Jesus. If I can say one thing to you tonight, even as you're celebrating your grace gifts here, that's something you should be saying every day. I always thank my God concerning Apostle James and Prophetess Leona for the grace of God which was given them in Christ Jesus. We need to thank him for that grace. For it's grace that has us here, it's grace that keeps us here, and it's grace that equips us in our call. Thank you.
Maturity speaks experience. You can't go to school for experience. Experience costs much, but you can't go to school for it. You have to experience yourself. Well, thank you, Pastor Vicki. Amen. For celebrating us. You celebrated your husband first, which is good. You should do that. Celebrating us and us as pastors. Certainly grace for the gift. We have another fine pastor. She's been pastoring some years herself. None other but Pastor Carolyn Wilkins, Resurrection Life Ministry. Show some kingdom love.
Amen. Come on, let's put those hands together. You guys are good. I thank God for you on tonight. And I thank God for Apostle and Prophetess. When I started ministry, they were good to me. And I say thank you. And it's still good to me. Amen. And when I come over here, for the teaching and the extra learning, and I just feel inadequate, but I know God is good. Amen. And we had the same scripture, but I went a different route as the Lord led me. And he sent me back to look at Corinth and why we ended up at verse number 28. All right. Corinth was a great city. Yes, it was. It was a city that had everything. It was Las Vegas. It was Detroit. I don't know too many more other places, but they had it all. The casino and all. Everything was in Corinth. And Paul had stopped by and established the church at Corinth. One of the things I love about the Apostle Paul is that what he established, he took care of. He made sure that everybody was doing exactly what they were supposed to be doing according to the Spirit of God. Somebody say amen. Now you make me feel nervous when you don't say nothing. Okay, make me think I'm saying something, but I'm not. All right? Amen. And so the apostle writes a letter to the Corinthians due to Chloe's people. A lot of stuff going on up in here. Sort of like it is now in the church. A lot of stuff is going on. A lot of folks want to be pastor and they've not been called to be pastor. They want to be prophets and tell folks stuff and they haven't been called to tell anybody anything. They say a prayer every now and then, lay a hand on somebody and they think they're a healer. So Paul says, let me get you straight on some things. God has called us to be the body of Christ. One. Not two, not three, one.
One body.
Working in perfect harmony.
Yes.
And what would it really be like if the church was really working in perfect harmony? That you are not upset because I sing just a little bit better. That you're not upset because my chicken tastes better than your chicken. That you're not upset because I can stand a little longer as an usher and you can't stand.
Come on.
What would the church be like? So Paul said, I got to get there. When he got the news, he said, I got to get there. I got to straighten out some things. And in the church, sometimes, even as pastors, we're a little nervous now to straighten out some stuff that we need to straighten out because we don't want you to walk out of the door because your ties are a little bit larger than the next person. But we got to straighten out some things. If we're going to be the church of God, we must straighten out some things. Walk with your ties. Because God will replace. Amen? I looked at Corinne, I said, oh my God. I said, why did apostle and prophets do this to me? Because you can't come over here and you don't know nothing. They'll sit you down in a quick spot. And so, he names off the gifts. And he looks at the gifts and he says, I got to tell these folks because they really don't know. Somebody got religion and just went crazy. But the apostle says they don't understand that it is by the grace of God that you are who you are. Not by anything that you've done that has been so significant, but by the grace of God. And he tells them, he said, everyone has a contribution to the body. Look at your neighbors. I got a contribution too. When it messes up is when you hold it back. When you hold it back, you mess up the body. Because we need a straight flow. A flow. Take your hand and do it like that. We need a flow. The body needs a flow. We don't need to be clogged up with nothing. So then he turns around and he says, God's grace shows God's grace chooses what he will give them to do.
Okay.
And he just gave me the night to come and preach. And I said, okay, God, I'm going.
Amen.
And all of our functions in the body should work in concert. In concert. Nobody flowing outside of the body. Nobody asks you to say anything. Just keep saying, oh, just keep saying that. Nobody asked you to say anything. He said, oh. Because you're going to be out of college. God has a goal for the church, the 2019 church, to be in perfect harmony.
Yes.
Resurrection Light, Center of Attraction, New Christ Community, Holy Community. He wants us to be in perfect harmony. I need not talk about the past at any church.
Amen.
Because he wants us in harmony. If two drunks can drink out the same bottle until everything is gone and be in perfect harmony, why can't we praise God in perfect harmony? I believe the one drunk said, I got a nickel, you got a dime, let's get together and buy a pile of wine. said right there in pen. When we're going through as a church and we have a gift of a word to be kind to one another, instead of telling me that I am not anything, you ought to just tell me you are what God has designed you to be in this life. You can, because God said you can. Hallelujah. This is nothing that I wrote on this thing. Our theme scripture tonight enumerates the gifts.
Come on.
God is a God of order. 7 days, he did what he had to do. So if he is a God of order, he wants his church in order. You can't come up there and say help comes before the apostle. Healing comes before the prophet. He said there's an order to this. Y'all stop clowning and let God do what he has to do. Amen. That's what I say to this church today. Not this church, but all churches. We need to stop clowning and let the gifts flow in the church. Apostle, I got to be really honest so I'm not being a hypocrite prophet. I didn't know. He told me that the gifts should be flowing in our church so that we would grow, Audrey. And I didn't recognize it until today. That the gifts ought to be flowing in your church. God has given you a gift. What will you do with it? Do you still want people to beg you to do something? Watch out, God will give your gift to somebody else. Jesus. Hallelujah. Amen. So he says, comes the apostle. The apostle. And his mission is to preach, to watch over, and to plant. And he is due our respect. Yes. He or she is due our respect. Somebody clap for that. That's a good thing. That's right. I'll promise you he's giving me the gift tonight to tell you when to clap. Then the prophets, that will foretell. And sometimes it will seem hard to you. But that's okay, that's your flesh working. And that's what Paul was telling the church. Your flesh has been working. That's where the miracles are happening. And you're taking them and prostituting your gift. Not so. We're going to line this thing up right because 1 Corinthians 14:40 says that God does all things decently. You know the judge, boom, 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 order in the court, and everybody stands to attention. Boom, 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 order in the church. Order in the church. Then he said, I'm going to give you some teachers. That teacher was awesome. I said, boy, I didn't see anything that she said. So I didn't know if I was going to be out of order or not, but I was coming with what I had. She was awesome. Amen. She's the teacher. The teacher has the knowledge. You cannot go and tell the teacher or the preacher or the apostle, well, I see the scripture like this. He didn't tell you to do that. That's why he gave you the apostle, the teacher, and the preacher. That's why you have it. Let's applaud those gifts tonight. Come on, before God, let's stand on our feet for those gifts tonight. Stand on your feet tonight. Hallelujah. For the gifts of the church, for the gifts of the church. The church is about to flow. Hallelujah. It's going to flow. Hallelujah. And then he said, then after that, some people are going to work miracles. And then there's going to be healing. And so on and so on. Hallelujah. Helps. I heard you over here in my ear. Helps. Governments. But helps. But listen. Nobody wants to help. That's a gift.
Yes. Amen.
If a piece of tissue is on the floor and you pick it up, that's a big job. God gave you the gift to pick it up.
Yes.
Amen?
Amen.
Your gift, the gift inside of you is important.
Amen.
And God wants you to share it. Share the gift.
Amen.
Share the gift. Then Paul comes in, and this is what he does. He gives this rhetorical question. And he dramatizes it. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles, of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Think about it. All of us can't be doing the same thing at the same time. Think about it. Somebody's got to pick up the tissue. Somebody has got to encourage somebody. Somebody's got to tell you the truth. Somebody has got to look over the truth, the church, so that he can tell them. You're out of order.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Amen.
You're out of order.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
I want to be in order.
Amen.
He wasn't looking for an answer. He wasn't looking for an answer. He wanted you to turn your light bulbs on. In 2019, we need to turn our light bulbs on.
Amen.
Because the enemy has fooled us not to come to church.
Well done.
He has fooled us
Yes.
not to share our gifts.
Uh-huh.
He has fooled us because we allowed him to
Yes.
fool us. Should we be ignorant of the devices of Satan?
No.
We are the church.
Yes.
The blood bought. We are the church.
Yes. Yes.
We are victorious in Christ. We are the church.
Amen.
We are the church. I'm not silent about that. I know who I am. I have been born again. I have been bought with a price. I have a gift that I give to God. I give my talent. I give my heart to God for the working of the ministry, to work in concert. We are the church with the gifts.
Yes. Preach, Pastor. Amen.
Jesus.
Yes.
To go forward. To go forward.
Yeah.
Go forward. If you can stand where you are, I just want you to just stand. If you can stand, because you're going to need a little room with this. It's going to be quick. Hallelujah. Sister Charlene, stand. Just take one step forward. That's what God wants you to do. He doesn't want you to talk about what we don't have. He doesn't want you to talk about we're not able to two people at church. He wants you to walk forward with your gift. What is your gift? Walk forward in your gift. Jesus. Ha! You may be seated high. Thank you, God. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Teach.
So if I were to say anything to the apostle tonight, I would say keep empowering people, apostle. Keep sparking our nerves like you do when you stop by resurrection. Keep making me mad and leave. That I will be encouraged to do the work.
Amen.
Prophets keep telling me that I can. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, because I'm part of the body. We're part of one another. And I thank you for using your gift to encourage me in the body of Christ. Corinthians, get yourself together. Get yourself together.
Yeah.
And use your gift for the body. It's not yours.
That's right.
It's not yours.
Amen.
It belongs to God. You can't save anybody, but somebody saved you.
Yes.
A real somebody saved you. We ought to be motivators. We ought to be motivators. I'm glad about the gifts tonight. I didn't have a clue of what I was going to say. I put a whole lot of stuff down because I wanted to be intelligent. Desire the gift of the Holy Spirit. Your gift is prompted by the Holy Ghost. Over 2,000 years ago, grace decided to come down. And grace came down and didn't have a place to stay. And was wrapped in swaddling clothes. I'm talking about grace now. Was wrapped in swaddling clothes. And he came down for the ecclesia. He came down for the church of God. And he came and he died for you and he died for me. Grace hung on the cross. And then when he did, he stayed there. But one day, they said, oh, Reverend, you say, one day, he got up with all power in his hand. He got up for you. He got up for you. He got up for you. He got up for you and he got up for me. Grace. Sacrifice. Gave us the gift for the church. God bless you.
Grateful gift. He'll do it. He'll do it. You did speak intelligently. God bless you. We certainly appreciate this line upon line, precept upon precept here today. I love it when we can all see and look at the same scripture and come at a different angle, and it still be God. Hallelujah. We thank you, Pastor Becky and Pastor Carolyn. We thank you. We thank you for you being there for us in ministry. And when we can't be where you are, we appreciate you being where you are. Amen. Because we can't pastor everyone. And this is why God has given us pastors after his own heart. Isn't that the word? Hallelujah. Let me say before I introduce this last pastor, I echo my wife, and I'll say to y'all, we love you. This is why you're here. Love has disappeared. Love has drawn you here tonight. And we appreciate the ministry that you do. This young lady, my sister in the Lord, Pastor Charlene Washington, I think I heard it, whether I said it, one of the other pastors, and then Pastor Carolyn said, we need to keep stepping forward. This woman has stepped forward. Even after the homegoing of her beloved husband, Apostle Otis Washington, she continued to take the helm and move Holy Community Gospel Center forward. It is our honor to have this pastor and blooming apostle, Charlene Washington from Holy Communion. Show her some kingdom love as she comes.
Wait on the Lord.
Thank God for his word. Thank God for your sister, Big Pastor Vicki and Pastor Carolyn. Thank God for all of you here tonight. My church family, I love you for supporting always. And I want to talk to you about the grace for the gift. Apostle Glenn and Prophetess Leona told us what we need to talk about. Amen. I want to define grace for you.
Thank you.
Grace is often simplified by believers, beginning and ending with a merit favor, which is in and of itself is an awesome thing. It's a great thing. It is a merit favor. Amen. But grace is so much more than that. So much more. Grace is also the influence of the Spirit of God operating in man to perform the duties of the church. It's the influence of God upon the heart, of your hearts. It's spiritual endowment, amen. It's religious qualification. It's miraculous faculty. It's power. It's capability. It's capacity.
Yeah.
It's a gift denoting extraordinary powers from God himself, amen? And it shows, God's grace shows its reflection in your life. If you're moved, if you're saved and sanctified and set apart in God, grace will show up in your life. Grace will enable you to serve God in the capacity that he chooses for you to serve. Amen? I attribute every ability that I have to the works of grace. Every ability that I have is not my own. It is grace. It's grace I can stand before you tonight, amen, and bring the word from the Lord. Hallelujah. In the Greek, there is no word for gifts. There's no word for gifts in the Greek language. The word for gift is actually grace. God's grace is charis. It's God's graciousness. It's God's attitude toward you. It's his kindness. It's his benevolent attitude toward you. He is disposed to do good for us. Amen. The grace of God disposes him to cause him to do good for each and every one of us. And he enables us to serve Jesus Christ's church. Grace is God's ability operating in man. It's his ability operating in you, amen? There's no word for grace outside of the word charis. It's gift, it's grace, amen. God's divine influence upon the heart and its reflection in the life. Therefore, grace is enablement. It's the process by which God supplies us with the ability. It's the process by which God supplies us with miraculous power, with miraculous faculty. It is all from the Spirit of grace. And we give him thanks for that today. Go to 1 Corinthians 12:4-7. Now there are diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. Many gifts, a variation of gifts, but it's the same Lord who gives them all. Amen? There are differences of administration, but the same Lord. And there are diversities of operations, but it is the same God which works all of them. The manifestation of every gift that we have is to profit the church. It's for all of us to profit from. The gifts are placed in the body for the church to profit. 1 Corinthians 12:27-30. You got your Bibles. Now you collectively are Christ's body. And individually, you are members of it. You got the body, Christ is the body, and you got everyone has a part to play in the body. We're all members of this body, amen. And what I love about God is that each individual person has his own part to play. And what that does, that takes care of competition. That takes care of everybody wanting to do what God calls somebody else to do. You have your own gift. God told me one time I was praying for a person, he said that person is so busy trying to do what I call somebody else to do that they're missing their own gift. You are just as important as the next person. And your gifts are just as awesome as the other person. Amen? 28 says, so God has appointed some in the church for his own use. The gifts are for God's own use. The first is the apostle, which is God's delegate. He's the foundation layer. A delegate is one sent with miraculous power and authority to act in another person's place. So in other words, Apostle Glenn was sent to do the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen? He was sent with power to do the work of the Lord. He was sent with the authority to do the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. And God sends us to do the things that he would do if he was still here on the earth. Amen. Secondarily, there are prophets who foretell future events, speaking prophetic messages from God himself. Proverbs 25:18 says, where there is no vision, the people perish. But if you look at it in the Amplified Bible verse, they say, where there is no vision, where there is no redemptive value of God, the people will perish. Where there is no sight mentally, where there God.
That's it.
Amen? Where there is no prophetic wisdom, or where there are no prophetic opinions to lead the body, the people loosen their values, they dismiss the word of God. Pastor Vicky, they go back. They go back on what they know to be true. If there is no prophetic vision in the church, there has to be a prophet in the church. There has to be a prophetic vision, because if there is no prophetic vision, the people are going to disregard the faith. And they're going to defy truth. They're going to ignore, they're going to oppose, they're going to resist the truth with boldness in your face. That's what your mirror was doing, Sister Vicky. She was rejecting the truth with boldness. No, I'm not going to commit an adultery. I don't care what you said, anybody else says, I'm not going to do it. Where there's no prophetic vision, where there's no prophetic opinion, the people will relax in their values. And then we'll go back on God. Amen? Go to Ephesians 4:14. Well, no, we'll go there later. Let's not go there. Let's say the same scripture, but in the message. It says the people can't see what God is doing. They stumble all over themselves.
Wow.
But when they attend to what He reveals, they are most blessed. I'm talking about the oracle in the church, the prophetic vision, the prophetic opinion in the church of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen? Yeah. Thirdly, they are teachers, and then they are wonder workers. They are people who work miracles and signs and wonders. Then those with ability, with the gifts of healing, with the gift of helps, with the gift of administrations, with the gifts of tongues, with the gifts of interpretation of tongues. All these are gifts within the body. 1 Corinthians 12:11-12 says, but all these work with that one and the self-same Spirit, divided to every man separately as God wills. For as the body is one, and has many members, and all the members of the body, being many, are one body also is Christ. Amen? Amen. 31. But earnestly desire and zealously cultivate the greatest gift and the best gifts and graces. Cultivate, desire the higher gifts and the choicest graces. And yet I will show you even still a more excellent way. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to come back to that in the end. Amen. Amen. Apostle, when you texted and you told us the day, the time, and to remind us that we were to speak today, I went to bed that night and I prayed and I said, Lord, I need a word for center of attraction. And I woke up that morning and I heard the word pushing past. And then at that same evening, I got the text saying, well, we're preaching about grace for the gifts. And I thought, this is not going to work, but it is. The Lord spoke to me and He said, pushing past infers that something is in the way.
All right.
It has a feeling or connotation of blockage. He says something is in the way of the call that's upon their lives. Something is in the call, the way of the anointing that's upon your life. Something is in the way of the call of the gifting. Amen? Something is in the way of your faith. God said pushing past is important for this because there's something in the way. There's something, there's a blockage here. I don't mean here. I mean among the people of God. There's a blockage, amen? When Jesus said, follow me, he didn't tell those disciples where they were going. He never told them where they were going. He simply said, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He said, come, and I'll make some of you apostles. I'll make some prophets. I'll make some preachers, and I'll make some teachers, and I'll call some to pastor, amen? But he did say, come and follow me. But Jesus, being the apostle, the prophet, and the high priest, he could do that. Because he knew what he needed in the body to perfect the work of the ministry, amen? Because where there is no prophetic revelation, he knew that his people were going to perish. Come on. He had to go back to heaven. So he had to place himself within the body so that he could go to heaven and restore things and get things ready for us. But he had to place himself within the body so that the church would carry on. Amen. Hallelujah. He said, even early in his mission, he's preparing for his return. Amen, to heaven. He has to teach his people, his disciples. He has to empower them. He has to place among his disciples leaders to carry on. And God has given us the same grace, the same carrots to build and strengthen the body of Jesus Christ. God knows all of our human frailties better than we do. He knows them. He knows all of our limitations. Amen. So, when I push past insecurities. I know what my limitations are. I know what my inabilities are. So I push past the things that I know I can't do. I push past my sense of fear that says you can't go, that God may not have called you. You can't pass without your husband. I pray, people are afraid of what they're going to possess. And all your neighbors' talk is going to come from people who don't have the baptism of the Holy Spirit, who cannot speak in tongues, who can't interpret tongues. They don't believe that apostles are still here, but they are. And they don't believe that there should be a prophetic vision for the church. And Pastor Doug, I'm going to tell you something. People who are cussing at you and trying to get you to go their way. The church is a theocracy. We're not a democracy. We are spirit-led, and we are not people pressure driven. Amen. We're not driven by people pressuring us to do things. We are a theocracy, and we are led by the Spirit of God. The church is led by the truth and the God. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. There is a grace, and there is an ability from God to empower you to move forward in the call. I had to move forward in the call. I didn't have time to figure anything out. I was going to let my church die. The church was not going to die. No. We were trained too well for that. We were trained to be apostles and prophets and preachers and teachers. We were taught the word of God. And my husband said in 1990, one day I may not be here, but you all will be trained as if you're going to preach to millions of people. And we've been preaching ever since. We're not backing down, amen. Let know the outside world thinks about us. I know what God said about us. And we're pushing past all of that for the call of my life. You ought to push past all negativity, fear, and doubt, so you can operate the call that's on your life. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Push past. Come on, Bruce, push past. Push past all negativity. You push past so you can realize the call of God in your life. Hallelujah. So you can do what God has called you to do continually with power and in demonstration. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Somebody put that face in this place tonight. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Give you praise, God. We magnify your holy name. Thank you, Jesus. Lord God, hallelujah. Yes, Lord. Your dependency has to rest in the grace of God to perform everything, to fulfill every office and cause you to step within the call His place within your life. Your dependency cannot be placed upon your intellect, Pastor Carolyn. It has nothing to do with intellect. It has nothing to do with education or nepotism. Amen. My children can't ride on their dad's anointing, and I can't ride on his anointing either. I have to find my own place in God. We have drawers and boxes of studies. I never touched one of them. I said, I'm getting this for myself. I'm getting it for myself. I'm going to teach how God raised me up to teach. I'm going to preach how God taught me to preach. Amen. I can't ride on my husband's anointing. I have to get my own anointing. I have to find my own place in God. And when I accepted the call, I said, God, ascends into the heavenly heights, taking his many captured ones with him, and gifts were given to men. He ascended means that he returned to heaven after he had first ascended from the heights of heaven. Even the city is part of the Lord's part of the earth. Hallelujah. The same one who descended is also the one who ascended above the heights of heaven in order to begin the restoration and fulfillment of all things. And he has appointed some with grace to be apostles. He has appointed some with grace to be prophets. He has appointed some with grace to be evangelists. He has appointed some with grace to be pastors. And he has appointed some with grace to be teachers. And they're calling it to nurture and to prepare the church for the ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ. And they're calling on all of the fivefold ministry. He's called us all to teach the word of God in season and out of season. He's called us to rebuke. He's called us to reprove. He's called us to lead his people in a plain path where there is no prophetic vision, where there is no wisdom, no prophetic opinion. God says the people will lack their values and they'll turn around and go backward. You gotta have the apostle. You gotta have the prophet. You gotta have grace for the evangelists, the preachers, the teachers, and the pastors. You gotta have grace for the administration and operation. God says, my grace is sufficient. Whatever you need, I got it. Whatever you want, God says, I got it. Trust me and push past. And push past. And keep pushing past. Keep pushing past. And keep pushing past. Until you come into full maturity. It'll take you someplace. You want to get there. God says, push past. Push past. That will take you to greater heights. And keep yourself. Hallelujah. Oh, glory to your name, Jesus. Glory to your name. Until you come to the perfect man. Full of the mission of spiritual authority. Until you full develop in the abundance of Jesus Christ. God says, keep pushing until you get to maturity. And you gotta keep pushing until you answer the call. If you just keep pushing, God says, I'm going to empower you. I'm going to put my spirit down on the inside. When you push past, thank you, Lord. I've given you the legal right of power. And I've given you the capability. And I've given you the capacity. And He's given you the competency to do what He wants you to do. He didn't require that you take a competency test when He called you. Hallelujah. He said His grace is sufficient. And what you know is enough. Just prove that what you know. Hallelujah. Thank you, God. Yes, Jesus. Hallelujah. Bless your name, Jesus. Oh, God, we thank you tonight. Oh, God, we thank you. We're more than qualified. You give us religious qualification in the spirit of grace. You give us religious qualification. That means you don't qualify. But because of the spirit of grace, you're qualified to do the work of the ministry. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. To assure that we're qualified, but He gives us the grace. We don't need any extra skill. We need grace. We need grace. Hallelujah. Grace is necessary for the call of God. Hallelujah. He places all ability in you for the call. When Christ ascended, He took His whole ministry and divided it up into parts, giving to the body of Jesus Christ, so that the church could grow into maturity. He took Himself and poured it out in the church, so we all can mature and grow in God. Thank God for that. Giving parts to men and parts to women whom He chose for the equipping of the saints. He chose them for the equipping of the saints, laying foundations upon which we are still building today. We're still building on that great foundation. Hallelujah. God has empowered us to represent Him in the earth. The equipping power of the fivefold ministry brings us into spiritual maturity through teaching and prophecy. The church has to be spirit-led and not people pressure-driven. We can't let people drive us. We're led by the Spirit of the living God. We're not driven by people. We're not driven by opinions of men. The opinions of men, we're not. But there's a prophetic opinion in this church. There's a prophetic vision in this church. I love coming here. There's a prophetic voice in this church. If you hear it, you'll go far. If you reject it, you got to turn around and go backwards. Amen. God gifted the fivefold ministry as a leadership team, as a stabilizer for the church, with the ability to move ministries forward. Let's look at 1 Corinthians 12:30 when we came back to that. In closing here. He says, but earnestly desire and zealously cultivate the greatest and best gifts and graces, the higher gifts and the choicest gifts, graces. And yet I will show you even still a more excellent way. One that is far better and the highest of them all, which is the gift of love. Love. Yes. Love. Yes. Your faith does not work without love. In fact, your faith is energized by love. Like the Greek word is energio. It is energized by love. It doesn't work without it. 2003, I went before my husband and I were in Urbana University in Champaign, Illinois. We were given a gift of going to this big conference, and people from all over the world were there, everywhere. They were all dressed in their garbs. Africans and Indians had on their feathers, and everybody was dressed in their native garbs. I don't remember what the message was, but I remember saying, Lord, I'm not perfected in love. I came home 3 days later saying, I'm not perfected in love. Lord, I'm not perfected in love. And I went to bed and the Holy Spirit woke me up that night. He says, if you will allow me to perfect you in love. He said, on that road, you will find the exceptional things. On that road, you will find things that go beyond. He said, if you allow me to perfect you in love, you're going to find stretch. On the road called love, you're going to find stretch. Yes. What was he saying? The exceptional things. There's some things that were unusually good and not the norm. If you allow me to perfect you in love, the exceptional things will wow you. Things that go beyond. He said, you're going to do more what is expected or required if you let me perfect you in love. If you allow me to perfect you in love, you're gonna find stretch. You're going to be made capable of being made longer and wider without tearing or breaking. Love will keep your heart intact as you experience the hardships of life, even in ministry. Marriages are hard. You don't stay married long without hardship. You're going to go through some things in life. But if you allow God to stretch you in love, you can overcome the hardships. On that road, the Lord said, peace will join you. And I literally I was walking down this road. I could see it was called love. And peace came and joined me on my left side. And we walked down this road. And then all of a sudden, I say from here as far back as that wall is, joy. He said that joy will come and embrace you. And I saw joy running. Just running. And got to me and just embraced me. Amen. Because I chose to walk in glory. On the road to love. Yeah. So this is the gift that God is talking about. You can have all the gifts, you can be the apostle, you can be the prophet, you can be all of that. But without love, you're nothing. You're nothing. Because you can't operate in any of the gifts really without love. Amen. Because you mess up some folks. Yeah. You can be prophesying and prophesying and everything else without the right motive. Motive is everything. But if you cannot operate in these gifts without the spirit of love, you can't do that. Because you're going to come from a place that's not pure. You'll end up entering a lot of people. Amen. In building your spiritual house, be empowered with grace and be led with the love of God in your hearts. I love the Passion Translation for this scripture. Psalms 127. If God's grace doesn't build help the builders. If God's grace doesn't help the builders, they will labor in vain to build a house. I went before the Lord and I said, Lord, show me how to attract young couples. Show me how to attract mothers, seniors for their wisdom. Lord, show me how to attract, to fill our church with children. And show me how to attract. And immediately the Holy Spirit said, unless the Lord build a house, labor in vain. It's God's business to build a house. It's His job to build a house. Our job is to labor in love. If you got one person on the pew system, I don't care if it's 1 or 2,000. We minister like it's the last day you're going to preach to get that person saved, healed, and delivered. We all want numbers. We need numbers. I get that. But we ought to teach like we got multiple thousands in the church. You ought to teach that one.
That's right.
If Jesus dropped everything to go get one, we ought to teach like that one is the most important thing in the world, and he is or she is. Unless the Lord builds a house, the laborer who labors in vain. If God's grace doesn't build the house, if God's grace doesn't help the builders, they will labor in vain to build the house. God bless you.
It's not a one-man ministry or a three-spoke ministry. You can't ride a bicycle unless it's totally equipped. What we've been trying to do in the church is have a bicycle with 2 spokes. Pastor, maybe evangelist. But we got to have the whole fivefold ministry. And they're not to do the work of the ministry by themselves. We're to train the saints to do the work of the ministry. You know, I used to allow me to be on Ask the Pastor. I said, ask the pastor. They trying to kill the pastor. They want the pastor to do everything. But we go to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. Thank you, Lord. Give God a praise for the equipping of the saints. Thank God for Pastor Jimmy being a teacher. Now, if I can copy that sermon, I want to take it and put my name on it. Amen? That's what teachers do. We learn how to study to show ourselves approved. And then I will tell you what stood out to me, Pastor Carolyn, was the synergy. Was the synergy that all the gifts need to flow. But you know what I found out? The gifts will not flow if you don't teach and train people. I can't take you where I have not gone. And we have people who have giftings in the body of Christ, and we have failed to train them. And they're still spiritual church. They still turn up churches because they ain't been trained. They have a gift. The gift is good, but no training. And they're still making the same mistakes they made 20 years ago. Y'all hear what I'm saying? So thank God, one day I went to an MSG class at the Bataggers Ministry and Spiritual Gifts. I've taken that class more than 5 times, and I'm ready to take it again. Because it's going to teach you how to flow in your giftings. Teach you how to be the prophet and an apostle and everything. So I thank God for the Bataggers. Apostle Rod is not here, but that's an equipping church over there. Amen. And then Pastor Charlene, I don't know what I want to call you. Just powerhouse. Just a dynamo. The wisdom of God is a real anointing. Somebody say a real anointing. All of this together, all of this synergy together, all of this energy together, it's called a corporate body. Somebody say it's called a corporate body. It's called a corporate body. Hallelujah. Somebody say it's called a corporate body. I need you and you need me. Come on, y'all. We are a happy family. Let's stand up for a minute. Get a little exercise. We're going to open the doors of the church. Maybe you're not saved. Maybe you're not part of the ecclesia, the called out by the Christ. Maybe you will not be in church your whole life, but lost in church. Like the prodigal son's brother was lost at home. Lord, find them, God. Let them know what true salvation is all about. I had been water baptized. Did every job in the church, but really didn't know if I was saved or not. You got to be fully persuaded and know that you are saved. Hallelujah. You got to believe in your heart, and you got to call upon His name to be saved. You got to believe that God raised Him from the dead. If you call upon the name of Jesus, you shall be saved. Right? He said, we believe in our heart and confession is made unto salvation. You just got to call on Jesus. Nobody ever told me that. Now I go to college campus and you can become what? The righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. Come on, give him your sin. Come on, give him your sin and take his righteousness. Here, God, I give you all my sin. And I take that righteousness. I believe in Jesus. Let him come on in right now. Let him come on in. And now you begin to walk with him one day at a time. It's just a beginning. Just a beginning. But find you a church home and a good pastor, a word-believing church, and get into the word like Doug was doing. In the word, and he'll change your life. You'll never be the same again.
Hallelujah. You be seated. We submit your souls to the Lord, the one who has it and one that is in control. Well, listen, we need to give certainly some kingdom love to these three fine pastors today. Hallelujah. Just a little bit more volume, Marianne, thank you. We're going to have speakers offering right now. We're going to celebrate them for what they have offered to us today. So if you need an envelope, please raise your hand. If you need an envelope, raise your hand. The check should be written out to COS, Church of Saginaw, COS. And I want to start offering $50 tonight. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Center of Trash. COA. I'm sorry. COA. And give your best offering tonight. I challenge you with $20 tonight. I challenge you with $20 for the speakers, so that we can show them. And let me just say this, and I need to, and I can do this because I'm a man. Let me say this, that we need to encourage our pastors who are of the feminine sort, because they have more to push past than we do. So my hat is off, I tell you, and they know I'm there for them. I encourage them. Y'all keep doing it. We thank God for Pastor McTaggart. We thank God for Pastor Benson. Those are the only senior pastors I see here today. We do acknowledge Pastor Aubrey Parker and also Minister Billy Williams, Billy Aldridge. And we thank God for all the ministers in the house. Will all the ministers in the house stand? Not the senior pastors, we all acknowledge you. The ministers, the fivefold ministers, would y'all stand? Ministers, look at them. Come on, give God some praise. Come on, thank God for our ministry. God bless you. Amen. Dave, you can do this for me? Thank you. Amen. All eyes up here. All eyes up here. Amen. We're not going to use the usher. Just come as you are. If you write down the check to Center of Attraction or COA. Come as you are, as we have